I woke up to a strange combination of cheerful laughter, lively music, and the sweet fragrance of flowers drifting through my window. It was odd, especially since I hadn't planned any kind of gathering. I rubbed my eyes and stared out the window, struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. My yard, my personal space, the place I had carefully tended to, had somehow turned into a full-blown wedding venue overnight. Rows of pristine white chairs lined the lawn, leading to a beautifully decorated floral arch. A catering station was set up by the barn with chefs in spotless uniforms preparing fancy appetizers. Near the pond, a string quartet played gentle classical tunes, adding to the bizarre atmosphere. And standing at the center of it all, barking orders as though she were royalty, was none other than Karen, the head of the HOA, who seemed to think she had the right to control every inch of my property. Fuming with confusion and frustration, I stomped outside, my boots crunching loudly against the gravel. My mind raced as I tried to figure out how this had happened. Maybe they had the wrong house. Perhaps an event planner had messed up the booking. But as I drew closer, my eyes locked on a massive banner that read, "Welcome to the wedding of Sophia and James." I didn't recognize a single name. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was sheer entitlement. Karen spun around just as I reached the first row of chairs, her face lighting up with a saccharine smile. "Oh, good morning, Jake," she chirped, waving a clipboard at me, as if she were some kind of gracious event coordinator. "Isn't this just perfect? The community is going to love it." I stood there dumbfounded. "Karen, what in the world is going on here?" I asked, unable to hold back my growing frustration. Her laugh, high-pitched and condescending, made my fists clench. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she said with a dismissive wave. "It's just a small wedding. We needed the perfect outdoor venue, and honestly, your yard was the best option. You should feel honored. The bride's family is very well known." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "This is my property. You can't just throw a wedding here without asking me first." Karen rolled her eyes like I was a child throwing tantrum. "Oh, please. It's for the community, Jake. Besides, we tried calling, but you never picked up." I snapped. "That's because you didn't call me." She shrugged, flipping through the pages of her clipboard like she was reading from some invisible set of rules. "The HOA guidelines allow for community events in suitable locations," she said casually. Crossing my arms, I shot back. "Karen, for the 100th time, I'm not part of the HOA." She waved me off. "Technicalities, technicalities. You live here, don't you? That means you're part of the community. It's just one day, Jake. Relax." Before I could respond, the bride and groom came walking toward us, both beaming with excitement. The bride, a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, looked up at me with gratitude. "Oh, you must be Jake. Thank you so much for letting us use your property. It's just beautiful." "I didn't let you use anything," I snapped, barely holding back my anger. "Karen set all of this up without even asking me." The groom, a smug-looking guy in a designer suit, chuckled. "Come on, man, no harm done. It's just one day. Besides, we've already paid for everything, and the guests are on their way." I ran a hand over my face, my patience thinning by the second. "You paid who?" Karen piped up, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, to the HOA, of course. A very reasonable fee, if I do say so myself." I stared at her, stunned by the audacity. She had not only taken over my property for this event, but had also made money off of it. My property. And she had the nerve to act like she was doing me a favor. Karen, flipping through her notes, added casually, "Oh, by the way, the catering trucks had trouble parking, so we used your driveway. Hope that's not an issue." I turned to look, and sure enough, my driveway was completely blocked by trucks, vans, and even a limousine. There was no way I could get my own vehicle out. My stomach churned with anger. "Move them. Now," I said, lowering my voice so only Karen could hear. Karen scoffed. "Jake, don't be unreasonable. The ceremony starts in an hour. Just go inside and relax. It'll be over soon." I clenched my jaw, my hands shaking. My land had been taken over, my driveway blocked, and Karen was profiting off of all of it. And now she wanted me to relax while strangers trampled on my grass and treated my backyard like a playground? Not happening. Karen turned away, already basking in the attention of the arriving guests, waving at them like she was the queen of the event. The bride and groom were busy with last-minute preparations, oblivious to the fact that they were trespassing on my property. I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and called my farmhand. "Open the back gate and let them out," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause on the other end. "All of them." I glanced over at Karen, who was chatting with some other HOA members. "Every single one," I said with a grin. My farmhand laughed. "Got it, boss." I tucked my phone away and casually strolled over to the buffet table, grabbing a skewer of shrimp. If they wanted a wedding on my land, they were about to get a real farm experience. As I chewed the shrimp, I watched Karen move through the crowd, enjoying the attention like a self-appointed queen. The bride and groom were caught up in the whirlwind of last-minute details, unaware of the impending chaos. I glanced at the barn in the distance, a spark of satisfaction running through me. They had no idea what was coming. The first sign of trouble came when the catering staff froze. One of the chefs, wearing a black cap and white coat, pointed toward the open gate with wide eyes. The next moment, a deep moo echoed across the yard, followed by the unmistakable sound of hooves pounding the grass. I took another bite of shrimp and grinned. Showtime. A herd of cows came charging through the gate, moving surprisingly fast for their size. Some were calmly chewing on hay, while others were clearly excited by their newfound freedom. A particularly feisty bull named Diesel made a beeline for the wedding cake near the buffet. The chaos was instant. Guests screamed as cows plowed through the seating area, knocking over chairs and sending floral arrangements flying. The bride shrieked in horror as Diesel made contact with the cake, smashing it into a mess of frosting and broken layers. The groom jumped back just in time to avoid being covered in cake, but his pristine suit was already covered in dirt. Karen's face went through several rapid expressions: confusion, shock, and then pure rage. She spun toward me, her voice shrill. "What did you do?" I wiped my mouth with a napkin and tossed the shrimp skewer into the mess. "Looks like my cows didn't get the wedding invite. Guess they wanted to crash the party." Karen stood frozen as chaos unfolded. Guests panicked, some climbing chairs to escape cows, while others dodged goats wreaking havoc, one even leaping onto the gift table. Sergeant Honkers, the goose, charged at the groom, nipping his leg. The bride, in tears, tried to intervene, but only angered the bird further. I leaned by the buffet, amused. Karen, red-faced, demanded I call them off. "They live here," I shrugged. "You're the one trespassing." The groom yelled, "Who throws a wedding on someone else's property without asking?" I smirked. "Great question, Karen." As the chaos continued, Karen's face turned from red to a deep shade of purple, her fury building with each passing second. The guests were no longer worried about the wedding. They were just trying to avoid stepping into cow patties or getting knocked over by goats. The string quartet had abandoned their instruments in favor of running for cover. The bride and groom were completely overwhelmed, with their once perfect day now reduced to an absolute disaster. Karen finally stomped over to me, her hands trembling with frustration. "You've ruined everything," she screeched. "This is supposed to be a community event." I shook my head, crossing my arms, my smile widening. "You didn't ask for permission, Karen. This is my land. You've got no one to blame but yourself." She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she just stood there, seething in disbelief. As the cows continued to wreak havoc and Sergeant Honkers honked in triumph, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. As the guests finally began to flee, one by one, the wedding came to a messy, chaotic end. The sound of retreating heels echoed in the distance, and I thought to myself, well, that's one way to crash a wedding.